Hey, I'm Gil, you're watching The Breakdown, and I'm going to show you my track Compact Renewal. So, I grew up in Switzerland, and I've been doing music for a longer time, and I played in a couple of bands. And then I studied music, I studied composition, and right after that I moved to Berlin, just because I felt like I needed to get out of Switzerland and sort of see something new and connect to people that do something similar and have that exchange. And I found that in Berlin really well. Generally, I'm kind of interested in things that sound and feel ambiguous to me. So I like using something that has this dark connotation and sort of has something even violent or brutal to it, but kind of find beauty in it. The track I'm breaking down today is Compact Renewal, and I did something there that I haven't really done before, which is to use old material and reuse that. I took a recording that I did, like an improvisation recording that I did with my last band, like 8 years ago, and just listened through that and chose bits out of that and sampled that and processed that to then use it as the sort of sonic palette for this track, and sort of use that against the very percussive outlay that I built to sort of have this clubby moment in the middle of the EP. Okay, so maybe first I'll just show what I used as samples. So this recording that I did with my band that I cut up and processed and just took things out of. What I did basically is just to find little places, little moments that I could use and just chop them out and then pitch them, reverse them, change the tempo drastically, put effects on it, and then record that out again, and then sort of build a mini sample library that is kind of my sample library and the sort of sonic palette of that track. So I can just show a few things that I cut out. Like we have this thing here. So that is actually in the track just as it is in this moment here. Just with a filter and some, no, the distortion isn't even on here. So just a filter and then just some layers that I added to that with like different parts or different segments that I also cut in there. So I added this thing here. And actually this thing as well, here. You can hear that really clearly in the original, I think it's about here. Just that, so here I just added way more effects, of course. I can maybe show it without the effect rack. So without the effect rack, it's this. And with the effect rack, it's that. So it's just, I just often just add a bunch of effects and kind of try them out, and something that's also really helpful to do is just to change the order of effects, because that really changes how it sounds, and just play around with that until I get a result that I like, basically. So I just found these sort of loops that I could use and that I liked, and then started building the track really with the drums, because it was going to be a percussive track and I wanted it to be a percussive track. And with percussive tracks, generally I start building the drums and build the rest on top of it. So what I did here is I have this one sample that I kept as a sort of marker that comes every 2 bars that keeps repeating. It's this thing. Just to sort of have something that carries the track in a way. And what I often do is I try to generate more material out of one sample. So I took that same sample, I copied it to a new track, and I pitched it and reversed it to kind of have a harmonizing effect on it. So together it sounds like that. So this thing here. And that just kind of carries the track for me. It comes from the very beginning, starts with that, and it keeps going through the drummy parts. I did the kick. What I often do is just layering it. I have this like low kick here, but I then added a very heavily overdrived kick that I filtered all the lows away from to get that, and then added two noise samples to it that have a short and a longer sample that kind of gets the whole kick a bit moving, I think, or breathing a bit more. Otherwise, these kicks are kind of simple. It's just got a compressor and an EQ on it. Something that I can show here on the snare drum is just that I like to do generally is to put a reverb and then an overdrive or an amp on this example here, just because it kind of gets that reverb tail and amplifies that a lot. So to get that sort of long-tailed sound, it's kind of helpful to do much more than the other way around. Another thing that I can show is maybe just with these samples, the sample library that I built, how I kind of then used effects on that. I did do a similar thing with, as I show with the snare drums, is to just sort of have end of segments or the change from one segment to another segment to kind of have effect automations there as well, to just kind of accentuate something. I can show that on this maybe. Yeah, here. So I have this loop. And then at the end of the loop, before it goes into another part, it does. So this is just basically an erosion that goes all the way up in the amount, and the frequency shifter for that like tremolo effect, and just send it to the delay as well here to kind of have it stay there with this tail for a while. Frequency shifter is actually like an effect that I've used quite a bit on that. I can show it here where it kind of sculpts the sample much more, or much more essentially. Basically what I do is kind of anything that in the like between 1 and 40 hertz region, when you like add the dry wet up to 50, you kind of get this tremolo effect much more than actually hearing the different frequencies. So I did that here, you can hear it quite well. How it goes up. And on top of that, just added a panning that kind of sculpts the whole sample and reverbed it out with a send as well in the end. Maybe I'll show that together with everything. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for hanging with me in the studio today. And you can check Compact Renewal and Dasnor SoundCloud. Enjoy.